Today, we are going to talk about levels of the U.S. government. In this module, David's going to talk to you about some of the government interventions and decisions that have been made about salmon in our region. And I want to make sure that you understand who has decision-making power at what level. So I want to make sure you have the level. And I thought I'd start with a little, what do you know? Does every state have its own constitution? Huh. What about the U.S. Constitution? How are they different? Every state does have its own constitution, and the U.S. government constitution oversees all of them. So here are some other questions. Who runs the government for a county? Do cities have the right to make laws? Who decides the speed limit in your town? I want to know that. Why do some states have more money or revenue than others? Who makes decisions about how schools are funded? So why do some schools get more money than other schools? What rights do states have to make their own laws? And are all courts the same? So these are some questions. Why should I know this? Why should you know this? You should know this because of these reasons. Your taxes go to pay the salaries of your elected officials. And every decision made by those people impacts your life. Whether you can go to certain places, or whether there's classes, or whether there's a school, or whether your property taxes go up. All of these things are based on the elected officials. So the more you know, the more you can impact changes you want in your community and in your state and in your country. So think about the forest ecosystem for a minute. So there are all these different parts to it. The bear is eating the salmon in the stream. The trees are there, and everything you've learned about what makes an ecosystem work, there it is in front of us. What happens if the stream runs dry? What happens if one part is out of balance? What happens if one part doesn't work? So the U.S. government, think of it as our ecosystem. Think about how all of these parts have to work together in order for the entire system to work well. We are seeing right now in our country where the system is not working well. And so it's important to understand the system, right? So we are a constitution-based federal republic. So the power is shared between a central government and individual states. And the law of the land, also called the rule of law, are named in a written document, which is our Constitution. We are a representative democracy. Citizens vote for the people to represent them in decision making. So we're a democracy, but we don't directly vote for things. We do in Washington State that with citizen initiatives, and that's how some really powerful initiatives and laws got passed. But overall, the government is run by people that we elect, not by us ourselves. Levels of government, and try to understand them. There's the federal government, Uncle Sam. There's the state government. Every state has its own government. There's a county government. So we are in Snohomish County, and our government, we have our own government for our county. And we have a municipal or city government, and that is for the city of Linwood, because Edmonds Community College is in the city of Linwood, even though it's called Edmonds. Don't get me started on that. And it's all about power. Now, it's all about power in many, many ways. The U.S. Constitution calls for a separation of power, which, when it works, is an incredibly strong ecosystem. It really means that things are in balance and not one role has more power than the other. Many of you will know this. There are three branches. The legislative makes the laws and represents people in the area they serve. The executive or the administration, they carry out the laws, they run the country, and they represent the entire area. And the judicial interprets the laws for the region they serve. So these are the three branches of government, and they're laid out in the Constitution, and they have equal balance. They check each other. So the Congress can write a law, but the president could veto it. It gets passed. Maybe people don't believe it's a constitutional law. They take it to court, and the Supreme Court can say yes or no. There's a balance. Is this true for all the levels of government, though? What about in my city? Do I have all those levels right here in Linwood? So we have the federal, we've talked about that, the vice president and president and the Congress and the Supreme Court. We have three branches of government here too. We've got the executive, which in this case is the governor, Governor Inslee. We have the legislative. We have a representative and senators, and from each district in our state. And we have courts. The Court of Appeals and the State Supreme Court are state courts. They all function in the same way the U.S. government does, based on here's what we do. We oversee the government, we write the laws, and we validate the law at a smaller level. County government also has three branches: the executive, which is the county executive, the legislative, which is called the county council, and the judicial branch, in this case, the superior court and the district courts. Again, they operate the exact same way as the people in the federal government. In the city or municipal government, we have the executive is the mayor. The legislative is the city council. The judicial are municipal courts. So if you have to go to traffic court, you know what I'm talking about. So what do? All executive levels run the government. So keep this in mind. All the executive levels run the government. In the states, the governor has similar power to the president. He can declare a state of emergency, as he did with the COVID-19 pandemic. He can call up the National Guard, which I think he did yesterday. He signs bills into law or vetoes them, all at the state level. Now, these aren't laws for any place else but Washington state, and that's where his power ends. The state legislature writes laws for the state. So, for example, people 21 and over can purchase marijuana and use it without penalty. That's a state law. Not true in every state. The state courts decide court cases regarding state laws. And in the cities and the counties, very similar things. The county executive and the mayor act like the governor, but for their communities. For example, tonight, right now, the mayor of Linwood imposed a curfew on the city. That is a mayor's job, the executive job. And the county executive oversees county employees. The city and county councils make laws for their communities. How many chickens can you have in Linwood, or whether you can shoot off fireworks in the county? Those are laws made by the councils of the city or the county. If you need to go to traffic court or deal with a local legal issue, the county and municipal courts are where you will go. So there is the other government. I'm not talking about the deep state or the shadow or any crazy conspiracy theory things. No, I am talking about us, you and me, all of us, the people who live there. Wherever you are, your voice can be part of the government. Back in the day, before marijuana was legalized, some of my students in one of my classes worked on the citizens initiative to put it on the ballot. They worked on the law, and through their efforts and the efforts of a whole bunch of people that they were part of, this great big organization of citizens, they got this law passed. So I want you to think about that. We are part of the government. The media and the role they play in telling the story or influencing the story, the political action groups and the ways that they lobby, the lobbyists, all wanting to say, here's my group and here's who I represent, so give us what we want. Social justice groups who are fighting for equity and equality. Black Lives Matter is a really good example of a social justice group. Grassroots groups who are trying to improve the quality of life for people or deal with homelessness. And business groups who are looking out for the interests of businesses in your community. All of these are part of the other government. So you're going to take a quiz. Is going to really look at who are the deciders. So it's going to ask you to think about which level of government decides on a given law. So there's going to be a law, and your job is to think, is this federal? Is it state? Is it local? Is it county? So that's what you're going to be quizzed on. So you might want to keep this PowerPoint open while you take the quiz.